Hey, welcome back. My name is Fina, and today I have two little stacks of books in front of me that I thought we could use to do a little bit of tracing and just have a little bit of a chat and a ramble about. So, I'm going to jump right into it with my first book, which is The Power by Naomi Alderman. This one, I think, has a very striking cover. It's got these very Art Deco geometric lines, and then the very big bold lettering, which is embossed too, actually. And it says the P-O-W-E-R, power. And the premise of this book essentially is a world in which young women evolve the ability to create electric shocks, basically. Hence the lightning bolts all over the cover of this book. And so it sort of details what happens as the world turns from a patriarchy to a matriarchy. And pretty grim, not gonna lie, the book. It's very well written though. It's from the perspective of several different characters, and it does the thing where it changes every chapter which narrator you have, which I really enjoy. And it's sort of, there were some scenes in this that I found a bit difficult to read. Like, it's a little bit harrowing at times, because obviously, you know, it's very dramatized. It's not just like everyday life, chill. But I would definitely recommend it, especially to men, because I think this is a perfect sort of expression of what it feels like to live in a world where you're not safe. But obviously it's flipped, so that in this world, it's men who aren't safe. And it's written very, very well. So I think she conveys everything very, very astutely. So I would definitely recommend this if you're looking for an interesting read. Maybe not if you're looking for sort of like a chill and fun book, but if you want to get stuck into something sort of, you know, engrossing, this is good. So, let's move on to book number 2. And we're taking a swift vibe change here to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this book on this channel before in one of my very earliest videos, maybe the second or third, which was a book recommendation video. And I stand by my words. This is still one of my favourites. So on the cover, we have this lovely ink drawing of our two main characters, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. So we've got Lizzie here in these old style clothes, and Mr. Darcy in his matching suit with his cravat. I don't know exactly what the period this is set in is called. It was in the 1800s at some point, so whatever that would have been. I know there's a lot within that time scope, but some of you out there will know it. And then we have this lovely chandelier. And I truly think Pride and Prejudice is a genuinely very funny book. And I mean, it even says on the front, the review says, the funniest book ever written. And it holds up. It stood the test of time. This is somehow still relatable now, so I would give it a chance. It's considered a rom-com, but our main character, Lizzie, is just truly a great girl. And you root for her during it, and she's relatable. And yeah, it's just one of those that you get invested in. And it's charming, and it's funny. The sort of social commentary stands up. So, I definitely recommend this one. And on the back we have a little ink drawing of the manor in which one of the characters lives. But yeah, it's still a favourite of mine. So now, my next book is another title that I think most of you out there will know, and that is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So, another striking cover, and another sort of dystopian book, again with the red, black and white colour scheme. So we've got the little Earth here with the plane flying over the top of it, and then these big white rings, and the letters B R A V E M E W W O R L D. Brave New World. So this one is a sort of dystopian future similar to 1984, except the people in the society are happy, I guess. That's the difference, I feel. But it's another sort of book where society is controlled by some all-powerful leaders who, they control the population, keep them subdued, keep them happy with drugs and pleasure, so that they, will work for their lives, So they're born to work and they're made to, be as fit for their roles as possible. The most productive and sort of mind-numbed. And our main character doesn't like the system, and he's an outcast for that, and we follow him in his journey. But this is one of those books, same as 1984, but I felt it more with this one, that when I read it I was like, ooh, you really called it, like, I'm seeing this happening. And actually there's a foreword in this, I think, where the author, 15 years after its release, says, I may have overshot how far in the future this should have been set because I've seen it start to come to life already. That was 15 years after he wrote it. And this was written in... Let's see. It was first published in 1932. So, it says a lot. But another recommendation. Again, I wouldn't say it's super fun, but it's very interesting and very well written and topical. So, again, a good one. So, next up, I'm going to go for a book I've not read yet. So this one is not a recommendation. I found this book on the street in a box of books being given away. And its cover is one of those suede-y, soft velvety ones. The book is called Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healy. And since I can't tell you about it, I'll read you the blurb. Maud is forgetful. She makes a cup of tea and doesn't remember to drink it. She goes to the shops and forgets why she went. Sometimes her home is unrecognizable, or her daughter Helen seems a total stranger. But there's one thing Maud is sure of. Her friend Elizabeth is missing. The note in her pocket tells her so. And no matter who tells her to stop going on about it, to leave it alone, to shut up, Maud will get to the bottom of it. Because somewhere in Maud's damaged mind lies the answer to an unsolved 70-year-old mystery. One everyone has forgotten about. Everyone except Maud. And I thought that sounded interesting, so I picked this one up. I love a mystery. And as you can see, this book cost £3.49. So, bargain. And it was part of the Sainsbury's book club. So I'm assuming what we've got on the front is the note that she finds in her pocket that says Elizabeth is missing. And I've got faith. It doesn't look like it's too long. And yeah, it just sounded gripping. So I'm going to give this one a read once I've got through my pile of current ones that I'm not finished yet. So, speaking of books that I've not finished yet, next up I have A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. In this one, as you can see, I am probably 2/3 of the way through. And it's been a slow read for me. On the cover we've got an array of objects that appear in the book or mentioned. So we have a photo, and I assume this might be of our main character, Francie. We have a tin can with the edges cut up, which is referenced in the book. They use as a money box. Some flowers. These two books, which I know, having read it now, are the Bible and a collection of Shakespeare stories. Little statue of Mary, a clock, some matches, a bottle of whiskey. On the back we have another cross, a shell. We've got a box with a sewing measuring tape, a photo of, I think, their home in Brooklyn, a brush and a candle. So this one is a story about a girl living in Brooklyn, I think in the Depression era, like 1930s. Maybe 1920s. I'm not entirely sure. And it really doesn't have a lot of a plot. It's sort of just the world through the perspective of this little girl and her everyday happenings narrated, you know, the things she notices, her thought processes. And I find it genuinely quite beautiful. It's quite sad at times because her life is difficult, her family's very poor, like bad things are happening. But it honestly is such a charming book because of the way that she thinks. So she just, our main character, appreciates things so richly and so deeply, like tiny details that you wouldn't even notice. And actually I've noticed that when I read this book, it makes me appreciate my life a lot more. First of all because her life is not fab, but then also because it makes me sort of focus more on the little beautiful things around me that I know Francie would appreciate. So I've still got a bit to go, and I can't say exactly what will happen or how it will end. But like I said, it's kind of a slow read for me, so I'm just going through it bit by bit and letting myself melt into it, yeah? So I would recommend this one if you are looking for something sort of passive and charming. So now I'm going to go in the opposite direction to another book that I've not yet finished. That is The Body Keeps the Score by a man whose name I'm going to mispronounce now, Bessel van der Kolk. Tell me what I did there. This one has a very simple cover. So we've got the title, The Body Keeps the Score, and a subtitle, Mind, Brain and Body in the Transformation of Trauma. And underneath we have a little Matisse painting, which I think is a really simple and effective book cover. And then the rest of it is orange. So this is a non-fiction book written by a psychologist and I think maybe neurologist who is focusing on the sort of effect of trauma on your body and your mind and how it lasts over the years. And as you can see, I'm not very far in because this one is very technical and quite heavy, so I only read it in short bursts because it takes quite a lot of mental effort to keep up with what he's saying because it's very, it's very scientific and it takes effort for me to understand what's being described sometimes. Because in here we have, the occasional diagram or brain scan. Now that I've said that, there are none. Where are they? Okay, you can just believe me. They're there. But there are some. And such... yeah, it's super interesting. I think if you have any interest in psychology or just in the area of trauma itself, give this one a go. It's not always pleasant to read about because obviously trauma is not a pleasant thing, but it's very interesting and it's really nice to know how stuff works. I love knowing why things happen and how they happen. This is doing it for me. But he talks about sort of what happens in the brain and in the body, and he gives stories about patients he's seen and examples and stuff like that. It's very nice. Maybe nice isn't the right word. It's very informative and it's very interesting. So, on the topic of psychology, my next book. Now this one I would describe as a fun read. This is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. And on the front we have the hat and the wife in question. And this one is another book written by a neurologist. And it is a collection of some of his most interesting case studies. So there are stories in here that he's written, and they're very beautifully written and quite funny and charming. And they just describe his sort of like weirdest cases of patients that he's seen with neurological disorders that have sort of manifested in interesting or strange symptoms. So, the titular story of The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat is about a man whose neurological condition, I can't remember now what it was something aphasia, I think. It's been a few years since I've read this. Caused him to be unable to recognise people and objects by their visual features. So he could recognise voices and understand who the person was, or, see, oh, this person has that mole there, so I know it's them. And he could, recognise music and things like that, and smells, but he couldn't, identify things in front of him. But, yeah, so in the story, he mistakes his wife for a hat. So, there you have it. Spoilers, but definitely give this one a read. This is not necessarily very technical. I think anybody could read this, no matter really your interest in psychology. And it's very fun. He writes very nicely, and it just really tells very fun stories of, just sort of crazy stuff. And it's short. So, give it a go. So now I'm gonna change the vibe completely again. This is the first installment in a manga series that I got when I was probably 13 or 14 or so, called Ouran High School Host Club by Bisco Hattori. And this is a shoujo manga, so it's like a rom-com aimed at girls, probably. And I actually got this when I was in my sort of like anime phase in my teen years, and I found the anime of Ouran High School Host Club, and I thought it was so funny. I loved it. But it ends after a season on a cliffhanger. It got cancelled, I guess. Never continued. So I bought the manga, and it did not disappoint. I still think they're quite funny. And since it's a manga, they start from what to me in the Western world is back to front. So from this side, all the way through. And this is super cheesy, really like silly, funny jokes. But I do like it. It's got a place in my heart because the things you like when you're a teenager never leave you. And this is about a girl who gets into a very prestigious, like, pretentious school for rich kids on a scholarship. So she's the only, like, very poor person at this school for rich kids. And she is forced to join a host club because she breaks a very expensive vase that they were going to auction. And they sort of make a deal that she'll pay it off because she can't afford to by working for them. And if you're not familiar with the concept of host clubs, it's like an escort if they didn't sleep with you, I guess. And obviously this is set in a school and they're teenagers, so they're basically just like hanging out and flirting with people. Hence the rom in the rom-com. But the dynamics of the like main group are quite funny, and yeah, it's just touching and it's cute, you know. So, oh, I forgot a major detail. Because she's joining a host club, she cross-dresses as a man. That's a key point. But, yeah, there's that one. I do recommend this. I know some people out there are not into anime, and definitely not into the genre. But if it's your kind of thing, if you like anime, if you like manga, if you just like graphic novels, or you like romance, then give it a try. I would say the manga is better than the anime because it's a lot richer, you get more jokes, you get more little asides, and you get the whole plot. So, on our cover we have the text, obviously, Oron High School Host Club, and then it's one of many. We have our main characters, so this is Haruhi, our leading lady, in a nice little suit, because she is cross-dressing for most of this series. Although actually, the concept of gender comes up a lot in this, and it's very loose. Haruhi never specifically says what she wants to be, what she identifies as, and at some point says actually she doesn't really care about gender at all, she doesn't get it, so I'm just, you know, just saying, you know, it's not very rigid in that way. And then this is the sort of romantic interest, but there's many, obviously, because it's a rom-com. But I don't particularly love the art style on the front. Like, it's very over-exaggerated, but as with lots of manga, the front cover art and sort of inside is very, like, it's a lot more detailed than the actual art inside. And I like the style of the actual novel more than I like these. But it's still pretty. Anyway, there's that. Exposing myself as a teen weeb, but I've come to be more, less embarrassing about it, I'll say. Right, so I've got 2 books left, and we're taking another swift turn from that to another classic that I'm sure most of you know. So, this is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and I actually studied this one in school. That's where I first read it. I like the cover of this book. Actually, well, my sister used to have this book with this cover, and it was fully annotated because she had to study in school before me, and I took that book on holiday and it was in a bag that then got stolen. So this is a second copy that I got specifically because I like this cover so much. I chose to get the same one again because there were options for this one. Because I just like the simplicity of it. And then the little sort of hand-drawn, childish image of the mockingbird. And I think one of the reasons that I like this so much, despite having studied in school, was that I read it before I studied in school because my sister had it already. And then it wasn't ruined for me immediately by the academic process. So, if you're not aware, this book is told from the perspective of a little girl whose nickname is Scout. And Scout narrates sort of at first life in this, I think, 1930s American town, sort of out in the middle of nowhere, small town. And the plot revolves around the trial of a black man. And it sort of talks about how Scout sees the people in her town respond to it and like racism that's rooted in it. And it's from this like childlike perspective, so it's just so charming and so pure and like really, it's just so well written. But yeah, it sort of tackles the concept of prejudice from a child's perspective, which is really well done in this book. And also, other parts of life in the Deep South with this girl and her brother. And it's just, it's funny at times, even though the book itself obviously isn't a comedy, but it's just so cleverly written. So if you haven't read it already, I would give it a go. It's really charming. It's not so long. That's my recommendation. So my final book is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So another good cover, I think. And I think I like it for the same reasons I like this one. They've got some things in common. It's very simple design. So on the front we have a handmaid with the red cloaked dress and the white hood. And it's sort of another dystopian book. Maybe kind of sci-fi, I'm not sure. But this book is about a dystopian future in which I don't know what happens. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read it. Something happens which causes a lot, or most, women to become infertile. And so the remaining women who still are fertile are sort of forced to become handmaidens. And they're sort of made to be surrogates for families, essentially. Like rich families. And, that's pretty awful. Sounds awful, right? But the book is from the perspective of one of the handmaidens, and it is very clever and very insightful. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. And it's one of those ones where I just don't know what's coming, It just keeps you on the edge of your seat. But it also has a lot of great commentary. I love it. It's good. So this one is a little dark, obviously, but it's really worth it. And there's a good TV adaptation of this, I believe, and an old movie. So I would like to watch those. I haven't yet. tell me if you've seen them and if they're good. And I still would like to read the sequel to this book, which came out after the TV show, who continued beyond this book and made their own sort of continuation of the plot. So now there's two different endings or continuations out there, and I'd like to watch the show and read the book and compare and decide which one I like better. So, I know from this little collection it seems like I only read like depressing books, but I promise I don't. I just didn't include a lot of the happier books that I read because these were the first ones I could reach on my shelf. But I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of tracing, or just hearing me chat about nothing in your ears for a bit. Or maybe you actually would like to read one of these, which is great, and you should. But either way, thank you for joining me today. I hope you have had a nice sort of chill out and relaxing time, or have had a good bit of productivity with me as background noise. Either way, I'll see you guys again next week. Bye-bye. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to my patrons, including my mid-REM cycle tier patrons, Max, Cossycass and Bellybutton. Thank you all so much for your continued support, and I hope that every single one of you gets a wonderful night's